History is written by the victors, or so they say. But what happens when history is not just written, but erased? Welcome to the story of America's Far West, a tale buried deep beneath layers of forced amnesia, forgotten voices, and untold truths. In today's video, we're uncovering the hidden history of the Far West that was meant to disappear forever. From the exploitation of indigenous lands to the erasure of entire communities, the Far West is more than just cowboys and gold rushes. It's a land where forgotten stories have shaped the America we know today. But why were these stories erased? And who benefited from this silence? What if I told you that parts of America's history were deliberately erased, entire stories lost to time? Today, we're bringing those hidden truths back to light. But before we start, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you believe it's time to uncover the real history of the Far West. Let's journey into the forgotten past together. Number 1. Setting the scene. When we think about the Far West, images of gold rushes, railroad barons, and sprawling deserts come to mind. But the real history is far more complex. Let's rewind to the mid-19th century, when the U.S. government began its westward expansion. What they called Manifest Destiny was, for many, a nightmare of displacement, exploitation, and loss. Entire indigenous nations were displaced, their stories erased from the textbooks. Towns built on their sacred lands became thriving hubs, and the atrocities committed were carefully swept under the rug. Number 2. The forgotten communities. One example? The once thriving Chinese immigrant communities who came here during the gold rush. Did you know that in some towns, entire Chinatown districts were burned to the ground, and records of their presence destroyed? These immigrants helped build America, literally. They worked on railroads, in mines, and in agriculture. Yet, anti-Chinese laws and violence forced them into the shadows of history. Today, only fragments remain, a few preserved buildings, scattered artifacts, and stories passed down orally. But what if we could restore these erased chapters of history? In the rush for gold and new land, some of the most vital voices were silenced. Chinese immigrants, who built the railroads that connected the country, endured violence, discrimination, and laws that erased their very existence from history. Entire communities were wiped out, their contributions ignored or downplayed. Meanwhile, Native American tribes were pushed further and further into the margins, their culture systematically erased by policies of forced relocation. What remains of their history is often forgotten, buried beneath a narrative of conquest. But these stories aren't gone forever. Across the West, descendants and activists are fighting to revive these forgotten histories and ensure the voices that were silenced are heard once again. Number 3. The mechanisms of amnesia. So how did we get here? The answer lies in systemic amnesia, policies, propaganda, and education that prioritized certain narratives while silencing others. American schools glorified the westward expansion as a heroic venture. Terms like Indian savages were common in textbooks, and the contributions of marginalized groups were downplayed or ignored entirely. But the truth is, history isn't static. We can choose to uncover it, to tell the stories that were never told. How did these stories fade into obscurity? The answer lies in something we often don't think about: forced amnesia. For decades, the history of America's Far West was shaped by those in power, who controlled not just the land, but the narrative itself. School curriculums across the country glorified westward expansion as the heroic tale of civilizing the frontier. Terms like savage Indians and pioneer spirit were ingrained in our minds, while the real stories of violence, displacement, and resistance were hidden from view. Movies, books, and government propaganda worked hand in hand to create a false, sanitized version of history. As a result, entire communities, those who were displaced, disenfranchised, or erased, were left out of the conversation. But history is never truly forgotten. As we begin to question the stories we've been told, the truth is finally coming to light, piece by piece. Number 4, why this history matters today. Why does it matter? Because understanding the past shapes how we navigate the present. The echoes of forced amnesia still impact us today, from land disputes to cultural representation and systemic inequalities. By bringing these stories back to light, we're not just honoring those who were erased. We're giving future generations the tools to build a more inclusive and truthful narrative. Why does it matter? Why should we care about the forgotten communities of the Far West and the erasure of their stories? Because the consequences of this hidden history are still being felt today. The pain of displacement, the loss of culture, and the continued fight for justice are issues that didn't just vanish with time. They're part of the fabric of our present. Take a look at the struggles faced by Indigenous communities, fighting to reclaim their land, preserve their culture, and ensure their voices are heard. Or consider the history of Chinese American communities, whose contributions were erased, and how that erasure continues to impact their place in the American story today. These communities are still fighting for recognition, for respect, and for justice. Understanding this history is not just about looking back, it's about how we move forward. The way we tell history shapes the way we build society. The stories we uplift, whether of resistance, survival, or hope, define who we are and what we stand for. By recognizing the forgotten histories of the Far West, we can begin to heal old wounds, right historical wrongs, and ensure that future generations have a more complete understanding of their past. This is about more than just facts. It's about justice, equity, and belonging, and it's about honoring the voices that were silenced for too long, so they can finally be heard. The Far West is a land of incredible beauty and haunting secrets. And while we can't change the past, we can choose to confront it. If this video resonated with you, help us spread the word. Like, share, and subscribe to join us on this journey of uncovering the hidden stories that shaped America. And in the comments, let us know, what hidden history do you want us to explore next? The truth is out there, it's up to us to uncover it.